The world is being rearranged in silence. There are no gunshots, no formal declarations of war. Yet the old order is cracking day by day through interest rates, exchange rates, and capital flows. As the United States tightens monetary policy, China pivots its geopolitical strategy, and emerging markets struggle with shrinking liquidity. An uncomfortable question emerges. Where does Canada stand in this great game? Once seen as a safe haven backed by resources, real estate, and a stable banking system, Canada is now facing familiar warning signs. Interest rates remain high for longer than expected. Household debt has surpassed historical thresholds. The housing market is losing momentum, and the Canadian dollar moves in rhythm with oil prices and US policy. Globally, rising CDS levels signal spreading fear, while capital flows become selective and unforgiving. History has seen moments like this before. Asia, in 1997, believed it was immune. Argentina repeatedly trusted in recovery cycles. Greece once thought the euro was a permanent shield. Canada is not them, but it is no longer outside the vortex. In a new world order taking shape, being lost does not always come from weakness, but from failing to realize that the rules of the game have already changed. Economic crises rarely announce themselves all at once. They surface through scattered indicators that seem unrelated at first glance. In Canada, policy interest rates remain elevated, pushing up mortgage costs and corporate borrowing expenses. The housing market, a psychological pillar of the middle class, begins to stall as transaction volumes fall. Prices lose momentum and inventory quietly rises. The Canadian dollar weakens whenever the US dollar strengthens, revealing deep dependence on the American monetary cycle. Liquidity in the financial system still exists, but it is no longer abundant. Banks have become far more cautious with long-term credit. On global markets, CDS spreads in many developed economies inch higher, reflecting rising insurance costs against risk. Individually, these numbers do not cause panic. Together, they paint a familiar picture. Financial pressure moving from institutions to households, from capital markets into daily life. History shows that crises do not begin with collapse, but with the shared belief that everything is still fine until no one is willing to take on additional risk. To understand how economic shocks spread so quickly, we must examine the mechanics of the modern global system. When interest rates rise, cheap money disappears, and assets once priced on long-term growth expectations are sharply discounted. Real estate is hit first due to leverage, followed by bond markets as higher yields push prices down, eroding the balance sheets of banks and pension funds. Liquidity becomes the critical variable. When a single link tightens, confidence can reverse rapidly. In 1997, the IMF described Asia's turmoil as a crisis of confidence, when capital fled within weeks. Argentina has repeatedly fallen into similar spirals as exchange rates collapsed and foreign currency debt exploded. The common thread is not economic size, but dependence on capital flows and perceived stability. Canada may not face a currency crisis, but it is deeply reliant on real estate and domestic credit. When funding costs rise and expectations shift, a shock does not need to come from abroad, it can form from within. Comparing global case studies helps clarify today's fragility. Greece believed Eurozone membership would protect it until bond yields surged and CDS markets priced in default risk. Turkey shows what happens when monetary policy loses credibility. sending the currency into freefall and inflation through household incomes. Venezuela represents an extreme case where oil dependence and currency controls destroyed the economy entirely. Canada is far removed from these scenarios, yet the overlap lies in trust placed in familiar pillars. When real estate becomes the primary store of wealth, when household debt grows faster than income, the system becomes highly sensitive to interest rates. As the US and Europe prioritize internal stability, Canada can no longer rely indefinitely on global capital inflows. These comparisons are not meant to provoke fear, but to remind us that crises often begin when countries believe they are exceptions. The impact of the New World Order on Canada's economy unfolds gradually, layer by layer. Businesses dependent on borrowing face higher financing costs, forcing cuts to investment and hiring. The labor market appears stable on the surface, yet job creation slows and real wages are eroded by interest rates and living costs. Real estate, once a growth engine and credit anchor, becomes a source of latent risk as prices stop rising consistently. The Canadian dollar's sensitivity to oil and the US dollar makes import prices more volatile, directly affecting consumers. Capital markets remain functional, but liquidity is selective, favoring only the strongest balance sheets. This is not collapse, but stagnation, a state of low growth, elevated risk, and shrinking policy space. For Canada, the core challenge is not an external shock, but adapting when the old engines no longer run smoothly. In this environment, government and central bank responses become a delicate balancing act. The Bank of Canada is trapped between two opposing pressures: keeping rates high to contain inflation, or easing to prevent choking growth in the housing market. Each choice carries costs. Cutting rates to early risks, weakening the Canadian dollar and reigniting inflation, while holding them to long increases credit, stress, and liquidity strain. On the fiscal side, government policy faces constraints as deficits and public debt expanded sharply after emergency stimulus. Unlike 2008, today's room for maneuver is far narrower. Reassuring statements continue, but markets do not listen to words. They watch CD spreads, bond yields, and capital flows. In the New World Order, policy credibility becomes a scarce asset, and Canada must protect it in an environment where even small missteps can be rapidly amplified. As macroeconomic policy reaches its limits, the effects flow directly into everyday life. Mortgage renewals at higher rates force households to cut spending, delay family plans, or reconsider education investments. Small businesses reliant on short-term credit face cash flow pressure as banks tighten conditions. The job market does not collapse, but it becomes fragile. Insecurity spreads even among those with stable incomes. This pattern has appeared before. In Greece after 2010. In Argentina during repeated tightening cycles, where crises did not erupt all at once, but lingered long enough to erode confidence. For Canada, the greatest risk is not mass unemployment, but the slow weakening of the middle class, the traditional foundation of social stability. When living costs rise faster than income and assets no longer preserve value, the sense of being lost in the new order becomes deeply personal. In times of uncertainty, the most practical question for individuals is not predicting crisis, but survival strategy. From the IMF era of 1997 to Argentina, history shows that individuals cannot control interest rates or exchange rates, but they can control leverage and liquidity. In Canada, this means reducing exposure to variable debt, building cash reserves, and diversifying beyond real estate. When high rates become the new normal, cash flow security matters more than price appreciation. LABOUR. Markets now reward adaptability, flexible skills, and mobility over loyalty to outdated models. The countries that weather shocks best are not the wealthiest, but those whose citizens understand risk and prepare early. The New World Order does not reward blind optimism, but disciplined defense. For Canadians, survival is not about escape. It is about adjustment before the current changes direction. On a broader scale, the New World Order is not only economic, but geopolitical. Cheap globalization once allowed Canada to benefit quietly from trade, capital flows, and skilled immigration. Today, supply chains fragment and geopolitics override efficiency as nations prioritize security over growth. This places Canada in an uncomfortable position. Too small to set the rules, yet no longer insulated from conflict. Resources and real estate, once strengths, become double-edged swords in a high-rate volatile demand world. Greece's experience shows that when policy space narrows, painful adjustments become unavoidable. Argentina and Turkey remind us that delay only raises the eventual cost. Canada now faces a strategic choice: redefine its role, or drift in a system where the rules are being rewritten without its voice. As the first waves of the New World Order become clear, the priority is no longer denial or panic, but awareness. Canada is not on the brink of collapse like Venezuela, nor under forced adjustment like Greece during the debt crisis, yet its sense of dislocation is real. High interest rates, volatile exchange rates, a weakened housing anchor, and selective liquidity have reshaped how the economy functions. For individuals, this means rethinking debt, savings, and expectations of the future. For the nation, it is a question of policy, credibility, and geopolitical position in a fragmented world. History shows that resilient economies are not those that avoid crises, but those that understand where they stand when the rules change. The final question remains, not only for Canada, but for everyone living within this system. When the new order fully takes shape, will we be those who adapted in time, or those who realized we were lost only after the doors of choice quietly closed?